Hello lovely people, I want to talk to you about picking asparagus because there's a better way than what you've been doing. So this is my asparagus bed. I have 4 crowns here. The spring started early this year, it got warm very quickly, and so I have been picking asparagus here in Zone 7 for 2.5, 3 weeks now. And I typically pick my asparagus when it's at least 6 inches tall, all the way up to 10 inches. And sometimes you know how it is. They run away with you. You come outside and you're like, oh my God, I better get picking. Now, one thing you might notice is that this many weeks in, usually you'll see an asparagus bed full of dried stubs of picked asparagus. Most of us pick our asparagus by snapping it off at the tender part between the tender and the woody stem. Now, I don't do it that way. Why not? Well, if you want your asparagus to stay fresh longer, you want to cut them below the soil line. Now, I learned this straight from an asparagus farmer. I made an episode of my How Does It Grow series on asparagus, and I got right in there, as I always do, with the harvesters and learned how the professionals harvest asparagus. Well, they do it with this, an asparagus cutter. I'm putting a link below the like button. You can check out my asparagus cutter. It's basically a blade, right, and a long handle. And what you're supposed to do with this is take it below the soil line. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut at a 45-degree angle. You're going to hold it and push down and cut it. That's going to cut this asparagus at its woodiest part. And what that allows you to do is take it inside, put it in a little glass of water like cut flour, and it will last for days and days because you have not cut it like you all do when you snap it at the tender part. It will stay alive, if you will, longer, fresher, longer, if you do it at the woody part below the soil line. However, if you're cutting one that's very close and there's another one just as tall, you risk cutting the other one that's beside it. So it just takes a little bit of practice. You just have to sort of find the right angle. There's always going to be the right angle, right? Maybe you have to cut it at this way, or maybe you have to come at it this way. Just take your time, right? So it does take a little bit more time than just snap, snap, snap. One recommendation is keep this blade clean. After I cut my asparagus, I always wipe off the dirt and then take a little bit of alcohol on a paper towel and just wipe that blade clean. That's good practice for all your pruning in your vegetable garden. It keeps the disease in check, right? So you're not spreading it from plant to plant. All right, let me show you how this works. So I'll start with this one. I'm gonna come in at this angle to avoid cutting this guy right here. Remember, you hold your handle at a 45-degree angle between the asparagus and the soil. You want to hold at the base and push in with the blade part. Just like that. And nice and woody down there means it's going to stay fresh. These 3 are the only ones to pick today, but I see at least 10 more at this thickness that are coming up. I don't like to pick my asparagus if they're thinner than this, which is about, I don't know, ½ inch over here. I leave the thinner ones, which is why you see these really long ones. Once the crowns stop putting up thick stems, I let all of the stems that come up afterwards grow to full maturity and what we call fern out, which is like if you think of daffodils, how you're not supposed to cut down the greens right after the blooms are done. It's because they are taking in energy from the sun, storing that energy, which means better asparagus the next year. So I'll let the plant grow up and I won't cut them down until later in the fall when they're brown and dry. So now that you know how to pick your asparagus for maximum freshness, you need to know how to tell which thickness will give you the most tender asparagus. I answer that for you in the video right here.